Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, episode number 13. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hey y'all, this is Kari and Billy out of Nashville, Tennessee, and you are listening to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your host, Jay Scott of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Podcast, and we are pumped to be back here to talk about deer hunting. This is essentially season number 2, episode number 13. We're going to keep it at number 13. We're not going to reset in iTunes, but just to make sure we keep it in the right order. But this is essentially season number 2 of the podcast, and it's deer season. Deer season is upon us in many parts of the country. I think it started, bow season has started in many parts. So it's time to start talking deer hunting. And we thought that it was best to kick this off right here today. We are kicking this off with a boom. And we're going to be speaking with none other than Rob Lucas of the reality hit TV show Chasing Tail. And Rob is a TV personality, part-time on the show, an avid deer hunter, a suburban deer hunter, and Rob is going to share a bunch of his tips that he uses on the show that he's been using it pretty much his whole life. Basically, there's going to be a marathon tomorrow, September 21st, on the History Channel, pretty much all day long to catch all 10 episodes. You can also catch all 10 episodes on iTunes, but if you want to tune in, set your DVR to record Chasing Tail on History Channel. I believe it starts at 7 a.m., and we're going to get some insights from Rob right now about how to hunt deer in suburbia and what it's like and how being on a TV show, on a national TV show, has changed his life a little bit when you have a camera on you while you're hunting. So, Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're psyched that you could join us. It's a beautiful day out here in New England. How are things in your neck of the woods?
Well, it's 109 degrees where I live in Palm Desert, California, and it's a little too hot to play golf or do about anything. But I'm happy. I've got my bows sighted in. I've been practicing a lot. Connecticut season starts this week, and I'm anxious to get back to for the first full weekend of hunting coming up next weekend. Beautiful.
It's that time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think about it all year. Every day,
yeah.
Doing something. Refining my setups and that sort of thing. But when it's right upon you, my wife has always had the bad luck of having a birthday on opening day of deer season, so I've never been there for a birthday. But I never forget a birthday, though, because it's opening day of deer season.
That's good. But now you're on the West Coast right now.
Yeah, I'm a physician assistant in plastic surgery, and I work on both coasts. But I'm primarily on the West Coast because this is where the surgeons that I've spent most of my career are based. And then I'm fortunate in that they give me time to go do the East Coast patients, mostly Botox injections, things like that. And it's a good mix because I make my own schedule for that, so I make sure I put all my patients in the middle of the day and have the morning and the evenings for hunting.
So you do some work as a PA on the East Coast as well.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
That's where I'm from, and that's where I learned how to hunt. That's where my hunting has always been based. I do apply for tags out west. It's a whole different thing out west. I mean, in the Northeast, hunting is a lifestyle. I did it before work, after work, on the weekends, all the time when I lived there. Out here in the West, you apply for tags, and you'll take a week off. You'll chase elk around, but then that's the end of it.
Gotcha.
And I prefer the East Coast style of living, where hunting is a lifestyle.
Right.
It's more, it's not an event for me. It's a lifestyle, and I if all I got to do was Western hunting, I think I would be a sad person.
Gotcha. Interesting. I mean, you have an interesting perspective because you get to hunt in both spots, and that's not something that everybody gets to do. So that's kind of neat. So you have actually that important contrast about hunting styles or places of hunting, whereas some people just kind of locked into one spot. So it's interesting you say that because I'm an East Coast hunter myself, And that's all I really know. Never really hunted out west, although someday I hope to.
Yeah, and hunting out west, people do it because they love it, and it's an adventure. It is a little more like adventure hunting. I mean, survival is something you have to prepare for, things like that. You know, I've never took an emergency kit with me on an East Coast hunt. You know, you're always walking distance back to wherever, you know, civilization is. But in the East Coast, the other thing is that I always have been a kind of a suburban hunting specialist, and it's a whole other thing there. You know, you're trying to get a lot of deer. You're trying to do something to help the habitat and reduce the deer herd down to something closer to carrying capacity for the land. And I'm also a very vocal advocate for hunting. And out west, I'm just an anonymous. I'm
Gotcha.
just one of the guys, you know. But there, you know, in the town where I do most of my hunting, everybody knows who I am. Some people like me, some people don't. But everybody knows where I stand, you
Right.
know. And that is,
Right.
you know, we're there to help. We're there to help and show hunting works, because I want hunting to be around for my kid and my kids' kids. And you know, it's propaganda from animal rights groups that are based right in the towns where we hunt. Their headquarters are right there. In fact, one of them has a headquarters in the same building that I do the medical practice in on the East Coast. And
Interesting.
if you want to get to this animal rights group, you just have to take an elevator from my office to their office.
That's crazy. So this is on your mind all day long, basically. That's interesting, Rob. So tell us where you're hunting on the East Coast. You're part of the show Chasing Tail, which is a show that came out last year, correct?
Yep, and you know, History Channel took us on. You know, it got started because I used to think reality TV was, you know, all put up, but we were doing what we do on that show. We've been doing it for years, and it's just now there's cameras around, and it's really exactly the same. It's the same core group of guys. We'll occasionally have, you know, a friend or somebody join us, but for the most part, it's just us. And I got together with them because they kind of followed my lead. I was really Mike Andronico calls me the godfather of suburban hunting, because I was really the first in that area to become kind of a one-man wrecking crew on the local doe population, especially. And then they all took advantage, you know, with my blessing, of occupying stands I couldn't be in, because, you know, you can't be everywhere.
Right.
I must have had 25 stands up. And then they started coming down from Vermont much more regularly to take advantage. The crew changed a little bit over the years, but I like the crew that we have. And then Mike, through his cousin, established a real deer camp, and that's helped a lot too, because, you know, we have a base of operations, we have a hoist to put the deer up, and those guys built their own cooler last year, which helped a lot too.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
So,
Excellent.
But started off with me just hunting a lot, getting a lot of deer, and then them kind of joining in with me. And now I got to say the student has exceeded their master, because I mean these guys are all very, very good at you know, kind of the surgical excision of deer from pretty densely populated habitat.
Gotcha. So you're hunting you started the hunting group that you now see on Chasing Tail. Is that correct?
Well, I would say Mike started the group.
Okay.
You know, I was an individual. See, Mike and I grew up like brothers. You know, his dad and my dad were both immigrants, bound together in business, started a sheet metal shop. And then his dad died when he was only 9.
Okay.
And so my father became his father figure, and Mike became my brother. And I've known him all my life, and we've seen each other go through wonderful things and tragedies too, and helped each other through. And I've got 2 biological brothers, but I'd say I'm closer to Mike than either of them, or just as close. And but Mike assembled the group because Mike likes a group. You know, I had always been more solitary, and you can kind of even tell on the show that, you know, I almost seem like an interloper on the rest of the crew. Part of it is because, you know, I'm in a different stratus. You know, I'm a professional guy who comes and goes and hunts when he can, and to those guys, you know, hunting is such a priority. I mean, John basically retired to hunt. Archie puts everything aside to hunt. Louis owns his own business, and he has his business partner basically running the thing during hunting season. And Mike has a kind of a seasonal occupation, so he intentionally, you know, doesn't look for work. You know, when it's hunting season.
Right.
So, meanwhile, I kind of balance everything: East Coast, West Coast, professional life, working full time.
Gotcha.
That sort of thing. So, I would say Mike started the group for sure.
Okay. So it's Mike Andronico. Is that how you pronounce that?
not quite. Andronico.
Mike Andronico.
But Siri on my iPhone says it the same way. Andronico. But that his family is very big in that town of New Canaan. They've been there for 100 years, and it's there used to be like a column in the phone book with that last name. Andronico. Just every business, every whatever.
Gotcha.
So they're hardworking guys, and it's a crazy family because Mike's dad and his dad's brother married two sisters. So two brothers married two sisters. So there's a strange kind of knot in a family tree where it seems like everybody's related.
Gotcha.
And Mike is so gregarious and funny that his cousin Peter started filming for a documentary. That's how Chasing Tail got born. Is that Peter, doing his master's for film, was doing a documentary, was filming Mike and everybody. And it got to be so funny that somebody said, "Hey, this isn't a documentary so much as it is a reality television show." And then it got the attention of Left Field Productions, that does a lot of top shows, Pawn Stars, and a bunch of others.
Yep.
And so it got going. And then History, which belongs to A&E, wanted it, and that's how we got on. And we're on again, coming up pretty soon.
Gotcha. I want to go through the schedule here in just a bit. Tell us more about Michael Vaughn, aka Arky.
Well, Arky's he's kind of crusty. He's got his way, and he gets upset so easily. But he's kind of like a dog. How dogs have tremendous emotions. They love you, they hate you, but then they wag their tail and everything's okay again.
Yep.
And Arky's like that. I don't think he holds a grudge for very long. But he's a serious hunter. I mean, I've heard him say, if I couldn't hunt, I might as well be dead, and he really means that. And but occasionally the frictions really boil up. Like I've known him to pull a little trailer down to deer camp, and everybody else crashes out in deer camp, and he goes out to his trailer just to be away from everybody. Yeah. Because he'll get a bug under his skin about something, and he likes big bucks. He's on it. So when someone sees one, you got to think twice about talking to the group about it, because all of a sudden you turn around and Arky is right there.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, he's got a heart of gold. He'll abort his hunt to help you out. He'll track with you. He's an arc welder, which is why he's called Arky. That's what he does for a living.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and he basically runs a shop, and he works a ton of overtime so that in deer season he can take some time off, because hunting is definitely the most important thing.
Right.
So, he likes his sports, likes watching TV, but if you go to his house, you'll see head after head after head after head on the wall, because he's and when he gets a big one, it really affects him. You could tell he puts so much emotion into it that it comes back out when he's got a big one on the ground.
Gotcha. So there's Mike, Lou, and Dave Andronico, and then there's Arky, John Bassett. Tell us about John.
John, Louis calls him Yoda, because he's just quiet and spouts these philosophical things, and he's just so nice. I don't think I've ever seen him get in an argument. He does like his practical jokes, but he kind of likes to set them off like bombs and then just watch all the drama happen, and then he just sits there with his cigarette and just watches it unfold. So I think the rest of us are like entertainment to John. He's got a very storied past. I think he's done all kinds of things, but one thing he spent most of his career doing is working a full career in the postal service. Mm-hmm. And I could just see him delivering my letters, because he's always a smile on his face and a positive attitude, getting the job done.
Right.
And he's definitely at full draw. He's probably the coolest one of us, as far as waiting for the perfect shot. And he's got an interesting style of shooting too. He uses a single dot sight, but he uses it like a rifle. How like you sit the animal on top of the bead.
Yep.
Kind of like the bead on a shotgun. He likes to do that, which he doesn't like to hide the animal behind the point. And he's definitely dead on. I mean, it's rare that you would shoot at something and not get it. And he's the best tracker in the bunch. Part of it is that slow, methodical way that he is. He will find that leaf that got turned over or that stick with a crack in it.
Right.
And when you're almost ready to give up, Johnny finds a deer.
Right.
So it's like having a tracker from Zimbabwe in camp, who can interpret the light at this time.
Gotcha.
And it's really important to find your deer there in suburbia because, everybody hates to lose one, but when you're in big farm country and it goes to the coyotes, you just say, oh, well. But, boy, when it starts stinking up or somebody's dog comes home with a deer leg in his mouth, you could lose permission at a property and you can cause, a whole neighborhood to revolt. So it's hugely, the stakes are high in suburbia, and we're so lucky to have him around.
Gotcha. So tell me about urban hunting. It's something you've been into for a long time now, correct?
Yeah, in fact, I don't know if you know the author Scott Vestool. He wrote a book on trophy whitetails, and he and I, he interviewed me over several days for hours. And in his book, it looks like I wrote the chapter. The whole thing is just replete with quotes from me and my experience, and I also provided him with photographs for the purposes of his book. But I got into it because I just I learned how to hunt with my dad in Vermont, where there's hardly any deer. We had a house up in Vermont, like a cabin, and I loved it, and kind of grew away from it in my 20s because married a girl didn't like hunting, so I just didn't do it. But then when I was done with that marriage, I looked at my life and said, hey, I got to get back doing what I like to do, and that's when I got into suburban hunting. And in the beginning, there wasn't really anybody to teach me, so I read a ton of magazines. I got a lot of shooting and equipment advice from a guy. I was living in New York, and there's a guy in Belleville, New Jersey named Len Cardinal. I think he's in the Archery Hall of Fame. He's an Olympic archery coach, and Len gave me such good advice during those early years as far as set up in the mental game of shooting. And before very long, I was getting more deer than everybody I knew, and people would kind of seek me out as far as advice, where to go, like put up a stand. I've tracked for I probably shot a couple of hundred deer, and I probably tracked a couple of hundred more because everybody would call me for help. And I really could write a book on tracking suburban deer because there are little funny, weird things that are different in the big woods. Big woods when it comes to woodsmanship.
Gotcha.
When you're dealing with suburbia, but it's got its own special problems. You have to try to be ninja invisible. You have to be visible sometimes. People want to know that you're on the job. And the main thing is you got to try to just have the deer get gone. The actual process of the killing and retrieving is something that should be done completely invisibly. And a lot of times I'd find a deer with a couple hours of daylight and, gut it and prop it up a little bit and wait till after dark to come pull it out of there because there was just no way to get it out of there without being a spectacle.
Right.
And those are things you don't have to worry about, in the big woods. And, coyotes are a little more of a problem than they used to be, but they can help you find a deer. So,
right. Oh, good point. Interesting. I never thought of it like that, but you're right. Especially in suburbia. Interesting.
Yeah. I've gone back at midnight and listened for yips and then if it, take a little green flashlight out there and chase them off.
Right.
But they, there's the main thing there is being low impact, which some of my hunting acquaintances that don't know me very well, looked at the show and thought that I was doing precisely the opposite by being on a television show about suburban hunting. That I was they know my philosophies and they have the same philosophies about being basically like smoke through the woods.
Right.
And doing the job, but then you flick on the History Channel and you're watching it happen. So it was a little bit. I had to defend that position with some people in the hunting community that definitely saw it as detrimental and not a positive for the image of hunting per se.
Right. Where are you geographically hunting in the United States?
Well, we're chasing tail. We're in Connecticut, which is if it's a rectangular looking state, it's in the bottom left, very close to New York City.
Okay.
And that's where all the deer are. It's in the state. They have very, very liberal hunting rules there because there's a lot of people and there's a lot of deer. There's more deer than anywhere else in the state because they come in and other parts of the state might have mature forests with canopy and very little undergrowth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all golf courses and estates and shrubs and ornamental plantings, just a ton of food for the deer. And we're 50 miles from Manhattan, and a lot of executives live there and take the train to work. One of our tree stands has a train that goes right by it, like 20 yards away, which wakes you up abruptly if you start dozing off and stand.
Right.
When a big train goes by.
Interesting.
But, that's where all the deer are. They have such liberal, they give you 4 tags, 2 doe and 2 antlerless. And every time you shoot an antlerless, 2 antlered and 2 antlerless, every time you shoot an antlerless, they give you a refill for it. Once you've killed 3 antlerless, they give you an extra buck tag. So that's why we can kill so many, because you can, if you want, you can kill 4 a day every day.
Gotcha.
And if you can get back out there and get some more, you can. Of course, that hardly ever happens because, even we're not that good. But, there's just it's a tremendous opportunity for that show, because a lot of times they, a deer getting chased or shot or harvested or retrieved is part of the story that needs to be told. We are hunters after all.
Right.
So
there's plenty of content for the television.
I think so. I think we just scratched the surface because Mike's got tons of brilliant ideas, and as usual with I think film and TV, some of the stuff that I think's the funniest never makes it.
Right.
The cutting room floor syndrome.
Right. Right. How did you hone in on this particular area as a place where you wanted to hone your skills?
Well, I'm from there. That's my in the same town. My dad had a sheet metal shop, with Mike's dad, but then after Mike's dad passed, it was my dad's shop for decades. My mom worked in the same town as a real estate agent. And,
Gotcha.
And so, everybody, that's an advantage too, like you're meeting somebody and they're like, I don't know, say, I don't know about letting you hunt. Say, okay, well, I don't know if you know, but I'm Harry Lucas's son. And they go, oh, Harry's son. Oh, please come on in, because everybody loved my pops. And he'd been a sheet metal man in that town so long, he'd basically been inside almost every house in town because, he did so much work, furnaces and gutters and valleys in the roofs and things like that.
Gotcha.
One time he was replacing a furnace, and he found a tool that he'd forgotten in someone's basement 30 years earlier. It was like sitting on a ledge. He goes, hey, he called them his whackers. It was like an instrument that he made.
That's crazy.
Himself. And he made a bunch of them, but he was always leaving them around, and then he finds this whacker that was sitting there for 30 years.
That's crazy. So your dad had a good influence on the town, and you're from this area, so you've been familiar with this particular area all your life, and it was then you chose that spot because of that reason. That's where you developed your skills for suburban hunting overall. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and the timing was perfect because when I was a kid in the town, there was a whole lot more in the way of open huntable lands and that sort of thing, but there weren't any deer back then. Like the deer population hadn't overpopulated at that point. But then the timing was perfect. Like I said, after our first marriage, and I realized I loved hunting. Right when I got back into it was right when the state started to recognize the fact that the deer population was out of control. They've got no predators except for automobiles, and they were just watching the deer vehicle collision rate climb. They're watching the browse lines form. They're just from about chest high down. There's no growth in the understory of the woods. The disappearance of ground nesting songbirds that used to be there. Mm-hmm. The absence of wildflowers that used to be there. These are part of the habitat that suffered from the deer population and are gone maybe forever. And these are the facts that I bring up when I'm doing battle with the animal rights people in the press. One thing that made me popular, and I wrote an article for Deer Hunter magazine about this once, letters to the editor. I think the article was called Dear Editor, and I would, when I see the drivel from animal rights people, I would respond with a very thoughtful, research and evidence and science-based response. And part of the reason was to try to influence the non-hunting public who do a lot of the voting. But part of it is also, just to kind of demonstrate and show that the animal rights stereotypical image they would like to portray of hunters as, pot-bellied, beer-guzzling slobs, that you see in the cartoons, of the mean old hunter, that's not who we are. We're thoughtful stewards of the land who want to help the habitat, and we like hunting. And right. So I would quote Thoreau and Nietzsche and Gandhi and things like that in my letters to support my case.
Right.
And I would read a lot of books like, Dr. Dave Samuel, No Hunting, and Blood Ties by Ted Karasote. And so I read a lot and do a lot of research, and it helped me with the letter writing, and then that opened all kinds of doors for hunting.
Gotcha. Tell us about the suburban hunting itself. You've described some of the the habitat a little bit, but you're hunting in an area, it's called suburbia. It's suburbia for a reason, and that's because it's a more densely populated area with people and houses. Is that a good description of your area?
Yeah, just kind of imagine some rolling woodlands that's 10 acres in size, and you just say, oh, this is a good spot to hunt. There's a little valley here, there's a pond, but then somebody comes in and they put a road with a cul-de-sac down the middle of it, and there's houses sprouting off of it, so it looks kind of like the stem of a daisy and then the petals of the daisy with all houses sticking out, into the edge of the woods. And it takes away a lot of the woodlands, but it also clears a lot of the land and puts grass down and shrubs and low things for the animal to eat.
Gotcha.
So the animals get pushed into these smaller and smaller parcels of impenetrable thicket, but they can pop out at night and eat more than they could have when it was mature forest. And it also creates a ton of funnels, because a deer just can't walk right through someone's living room. A deer has to walk in the woods, or you'll see them crossing driveways and roads, but they do prefer cover, and they do prefer a quick escape. So, it actually makes it much easier than trying to figure out, big agricultural plots and big woods. Homogeneous big woods is probably something I would be like an idiot out there trying to figure that out. But when it comes to suburbia, I look at the funnels, I look at what I think is going to be a travel pattern, and I see it, kind of like Neo in the Matrix could look at the code and see what he wanted to see.
Right.
I could look at neighborhoods and I could say, well, this is going to suck because, this finger of woods goes nowhere. Whereas another one, there's let's say a preserve where there isn't any houses, and there's fingers of woods coming off of that out into these neighborhoods where all the feed is. Well, then that's the place you want to be. So you have to decipher like a woodsman, but suburban woodsmanship is not that difficult. But meanwhile, most suburban hunters, I think, don't even try to figure it out. They get a place to hunt and they just put up a stand and they just sit there. They figure, I'm in the woods, a deer's going to come by eventually. But I'm much more selective than that, and I kind of got it down to a science. And I think Mike also, he sees, he could see the woods the way I do. And I think between Mike and I, we obtain most of the properties that we hunt, and then all the guys help us hunt it. And, Archie is amazing when it comes to putting up stands. He's like a monkey up in the tree. He's just, being a welder, he's so powerful that he can just hang on. And, he's never heard of a safety strap. He just, just swings around up there so deftly.
Right. So you've got a challenge that's a little different than a lot of our listeners, in that sometimes we get these large plots of land that's owned by one person, but it sounds like you guys need to go out and you need to get permission to hunt this property. Is that kind of the way it's done in southeastern Connecticut, where you have to actually go out and get permission to hunt these spots?
Oh yeah, you have to have written permission on your person to be anywhere. But here's the technique. Like you might find a farm and get the farm and then try to figure it out, go to a high spot, glass it where the deer are entering and exiting field, things like that. What we'll do is we'll identify a neighborhood. Like this is let's try to get into this area. There's a place, let's say in Darien, called Salem Straits. I'd go to Salem Straits and I'd look around and I'd say, I bet you there are deer here. You might cruise it through it in your car in the mornings and evenings. There's no point in glassing because in the thick, especially this time of year, you can't see 50 yards in any direction, just thick, lush, everything. So you identify there are some deer in the neighborhood. Now your job is to get a foot in the door, get at least one place where you get permission to hunt, and you make your case based on the deer population, Lyme disease, that sort of thing. You get one advocate in that neighborhood. Now you have to identify what other properties you'd like to get, and instead of going cold calling on those folks as a stranger, you get the person who's already permitting you to be your agent. Wow. You ask them, hey, listen, can you call these? Because they've lived next to them for 15 years and they know them, and they're a little less likely to say no to their neighbor because they don't want to get their neighbor across with them. So you use the landowners that you have as your agents to get more, and then as you get multiple connected properties, you've really got a huntable situation. So it's kind of like we try to spread like a virus through a neighborhood. We try to affect one property and then the adjacent one and the adjacent one. And then once you've got it kind of sewn up, it's it's so much better when, let's say, you're up in the stand and you see a buck move by on the other side of a stone wall. He's out of range, but you know where he's going. You might wait till he's out of sight, climb down, get your truck, drive 200 yards to another property that you have permission where you believe he's going to be headed and wait for him over there. And I've gotten deer that way. It sounds like, running around a supermarket to get all the things on your list, but that's what it's like sometimes.
Right.
Because there's just not that many places for him to go. And if a deer is on the roam, he's looking around for does and he's headed a certain way, there's a funnel up ahead, you know where it is. And if you're waiting for him, you could score.
That's an interesting complexity to hunting that I don't think a lot of us can understand exactly, but that's why I've got you on the show today to kind of bring this to bring some attention to it, because you go down to North Carolina, for example, and you're hunting deer over soybean fields, and it wouldn't be unusual to take a 500-yard shot because the fields are huge. Whereas you have to drive. You could go from one spot, identify a deer, and then and drive across the road 200 yards to hunt another spot that you had to also obtain permission to hunt in order to hunt successfully. It's just a very interesting dynamic that we're just not familiar with. So this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and we can only bow hunt. Connecticut has a law about firearms. 500 feet from a structure you must be, which means that, like, supposing there were two houses 1,000 feet apart, there would only be 1 square foot where you could sit and legally be there. Well, there is no place in our area where there's 1,000 feet between two buildings.
And that's for a firearm, you said?
Firearm, any firearm, including muzzle-loading firearms. So, really, there's a few farms, there's a few places that some people who like gun hunting go. I really don't know. I don't even know any gun hunters that hunt in our area. But when you're hunting in northern parts of some of the towns, you occasionally hear gunfire. I'm sure that some of it isn't even legal. It's
right.
Someone, popping one out of his back porch kind of thing.
So the most of the hunting you guys are doing is really bow hunting, because that's what your terrain's allowing you to do.
Yeah, it's all we do, and it adds to that whole idea of stealth and low impact.
Right.
We all love bow hunting. I grew up watching Fred Bear on television on the American Sportsman, and I knew I loved it back then. And I killed my first woodchuck with a bow when I was like 13.
Right.
And I was hooked.
Very cool. When you want to hunt a neighborhood, how many homes are we talking about needing to obtain written permission to hunt the whole neighborhood on average?
I would say a minimum of 5.
Okay.
And so we end up in our fanny packs. We end up with this big wad. It looks like we're carrying Bibles around with. It's a stack of consent forms.
That's incredible.
And the troublesome thing about consent forms is they're only good for the calendar year. So the season extends all the way through the end of January.
Right.
Although January's forms are still good for that same fall. So there's a little bit of a mad scramble right around Christmas time to get people signed up, because you don't want to violate a game law with its silly technicality. Like when you're on a property where you belong, and the landowner has no problem with it. He's happy to have you, but your form says 2012 and it's January 3rd, 2013. So you gotta do what you gotta do. Which is get those forms signed.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of work. But the guys in the big agricultural areas you're describing, they do favors for the farmer. They'll mend fences, they'll help bale hay, they'll do whatever they can do to help the landowner to get the privilege of hunting.
Right.
We do that same thing, for our landowners. It's just that we have a lot more individuals. Luckily, they all want the same thing. They want the deer dead.
Right.
So our favor to them is taking them out of there. And sometimes I've got to say it's a chore. Like you got to kill one more doe just because it's there, and you got to get to work in an hour and say, yeah, I got to do it because that's what these people want, and that's my favor to them. And then in return, I get to have the privilege.
Yep. Do you end up sharing some of the venison that you have with the landowner, or do they basically just want the deer out of there and that's it?
We share a lot of it. We give them, obviously. I've killed 30 deer in a year. You can't eat that much.
Right.
So we all give away much more than we keep. I pretty much just eat back straps and give everything else away. So I've taken it, 300 or 400 pounds at a time to the local shelter, where they're very happy to get frozen meat because nobody gives that because it's so expensive.
Right.
People give turkeys at Christmas at Thanksgiving time. That's about it. But so they're happy to see me. And then the landowners tend to want it. They tend to want the best cuts, and we also frequently give them a recipe. Print something down for them if they've never tried it. We encourage the ones that haven't tried it to try it.
Right.
Because just once again being good ambassadors for it. And then Mike takes a good few up to Vermont. There's the economy is what it is. Certain areas are hit harder than others. I mean, there's a lot of families that Mike has basically been feeding for several years,
right.
and I don't know how they'd make it if we didn't get so many deer down in Connecticut where they're overpopulated. But
right.
he just gives it to them, asks nothing in return, because he knows that it's good for everybody.
Right. It's fascinating that, so you've got you have a densely populated area of deer. You have to go and get permission to hunt a lot of these properties. The landowners are happy to have you for the most part. Do you ever run into any other hunters? It sounds like you guys kind of have that area kind of cornered, but are there other hunters that hunt same land where you're competing?
We run into them. We run into them all the time,
Okay.
and there's a ton of hunters down there, and not all of them are great. There's people that will get permission on a property adjacent to let's say public land or a park, and then use the property as an entryway to hunting in places where they're not supposed to be. And I've had permissions in places where I just stopped going because of I don't want to be anywhere proximal to the goings on that I see. At the same time, I'd say most hunters are just like us. We're all interested in having a good time and doing something good for the landowners and carrying a good message for hunting. But when you get those bad apples, I just get chased right out of there. There is a little bit of kind of a competition feel with some hunters. I knew one guy would sign up properties, and then he just would never go there. He just didn't want anybody else going there. So he would, kind of try to use it as a blockade. But, I don't know if in your neck of the woods you run into that. But, I mean, hunting's not supposed to be a competition sport, but in some people's view it is.
Right.
And, so we're very keen on staying out of controversy and not having conflicts.
Yep.
So, I totally, just go the other way. I've got so many places I can go that it's just silly to go someplace where it's going to be drama. And occasionally there's animal rights folks, and that ruins an area. Like, you've got a great spot, the landowner loves you and wants you to hunt, but there's a neighbor, a budding property, who is very much against it. And I had this one guy would call his imaginary dog at dawn. He would go out and walk back and forth in the property line. Here, Skippy, come on, boy, come on. Walking back and forth. He didn't even have a dog. He was just avoiding the hunter harassment laws by, instead of harassing me directly, he was calling me an imaginary dog.
Right. So the hunter harassment laws are in effect in that area, so that's good.
Definitely. Connecticut's got that, and it's rarely employed.
Right.
But and it rarely comes up. But when it does, the hunter loses in those situations. It's silly to waste your time doing battle with people that are against it. You're never going to change their mind, and if anything, the controversy will go more public. So it's just better to get those situations just to go somewhere else.
Gotcha. So tell me about the show a little bit. You've hunted this area. You were hunting this area before the show came to be, and one of your hunting buddies, Peter, is that what you said, was doing a documentary on? Yeah,
Peter's Mike's cousin.
Okay.
Cousin or nephew. I mean, like I said, there's that not in the family tree, and I knew Peter when he was a little boy, and he's younger than Mike and I, and so Peter just he's pretty close to Mike and Dave, that's definitely Mike's cousin Dave. And so he started doing this, this documentary for this thesis. And Peter's got a tremendous sense of humor, and Mike's got an amazing sense of humor. So it was hilarious. Like the stuff Peter's got thousands of hours. I mean, they could do a show just on what Peter's got in the vault for years. Some of it is just so hilarious. There was one time Mike was kind of stuck in the snow. He didn't have enough money to have good tires on his truck, and he's stuck in like 3 inches of snow, and he's trying to get his truck out, and Peter's filming the whole thing, and Mike's just cursing him out, like, turn the goddamn camera off, because it's embarrassing to get stuck in a four-wheel drive truck in 3 inches of snow. Right. It's like those two too. There's like this little, it's friendly, loving, the kind only relatives have, friendly, loving animosity, and watching them go back and forth. I always thought that Peter ought to be on camera. He ought to be part of it, like the non-hunter that we're trying to train to hunt.
Right. Right.
But maybe in a future season we'll see.
So Peter was doing the documentary, and you all agreed to be in the documentary, it sounds like. And
yeah, everybody signed up because it was good for Peter, and he was getting a master's degree.
And then how did it develop from there? Did one of you decide that you should start pitching it to a production company, or did the History Channel come looking for you? How did that happen?
Well, Peter gets all the credit. I mean, his film was so good that it was featured at a film festival in New York, and he had the presence of mind to invite Mike and a couple of guys down to the screening, and it was so well received, a standing ovation. I mean, there was one short film after another, and the thing just stopped when this thing went on, and then these guys stood up and like, oh my God, they're here! Look, that's them, and just they were immediate rock stars, and the way it works is, a production company, Left Field Productions, said, I guess they were there, and they said, let's do this thing. And so the way it works is the production company, you say, okay, you're going to produce this thing for us, and so everybody signs with them. Then they go to a network, and then the network sees that everybody's signed up and the product is guaranteed. So then the network orders episodes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
that's
so we're fortunate getting with a big network like History. So like the people on camera, we don't have really anything to do with anything as far as getting the thing done.
Right.
We just hunt and just try to be ourselves when the cameras are around.
So you're just doing your thing as you normally would do, and that was you just prompted my next question: is how has your hunting life or life at deer camp changed since you have to have a camera on you?
You end up spending a lot more time and doing a lot less hunting because, the logistics of doing television, you don't realize when you're just watching it. But like if you see a guy drive up deer camp and get out of the car and walk inside, he had to do that like 6 times because, they're filming it from the top of deer camp looking down, the car driving up, and you drive back out and you drive in again. And now the cameraman's sitting in the car with you watching you get out of the car from the inside. And then you back up down the driveway again, and now he's inside deer camp and he's watching the door open and you come in. So, I mean, everything you do, you have to do, 6 times.
Right.
And so, as far as the conversations, we just let it fly. And, they have little GoPro cameras around and several cameramen staying out of each other's shot.
Yep.
And that sort of thing. And you got to remember, everybody's wearing a microphone. So, stop, change the batteries. Sound guy says that I'm not getting, this mic's dead and I'm not getting Mike's voice, and start over again,
So they're monitoring some of this stuff. Got it.
Well, yeah, they're all up in your stuff, and they're right there. They're just not in the shot,
Right.
just left or right of what you're seeing on the camera. There's people over there.
Right.
But the thing is, though, that and I used to think about reality shows, and I thought, well, none of this is real because there's a sound guy and there's a producer and there's a caterer and there's all this stuff going on. The thing is, though, that we're doing what we really do, and you very quickly learn to just forget about all that stuff, and I'm in plastic surgery a lot. My boss has a television show, and we have cameras there all the time, and we don't act any different with cameras around. And so this is the same thing. Because you just learned there's such a part of the wallpaper that you forget about them.
And this is your boss that has a TV show as well?
Yeah, I have work in plastic surgery, and one of the people in our group has a television show on CBS.
Oh, interesting. So you've got cameras around you all the time.
Not all the time, but I'm definitely used to it.
You're used to it. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So the season, the very first inaugural season for Chasing Tail was this last year, and they're coming up on a marathon, right? They're going to relaunch all the shows again so everybody can see them going into the next season.
Yeah, they're going to be, in order on the 21st. I think it starts at like 7 a.m. Eastern time, and I think they're just going to run back to back to back. I think the original 10 shows, which is good because if anybody missed an episode, they can record it, or if anybody missed the whole series, they can watch it. And also, I think the way it, since it starts at the beginning and runs through, you kind of get to learn who we are and get the character development of, because this show. I mean, there's a lot of hunting shows on television. You know, I'm a big fan of The Crush with Lee and Tiffany and a bunch of different shows. And there is a little bit of the character of the people in there, but they're primarily hunting shows about hunting and the hunt that's happening. And this show is more a character-driven show about the personalities of the people that we are.
Right. Right.
And so it's a whole different animal, and it doesn't try to be the other thing. You know, we're not trying to instruct you on how to take trophy deer or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's meant to be entertainment, and you know, I got a lot of good feedback from it. And you know, the deer season starting this weekend, I'm going to be there hunting. I don't know, you know, anything about cameras for the early season, but from my other experience in TV, I found that as the seasons pass, things get more efficient, and they don't need to take up as much of your time to get what they need,
right,
as far as, you know, get their shots and get their stories down.
Right.
So I imagine if I were producing television about hunting, I would probably focus most of my energy at the time when the hunting is best, which is, you know, in the Northeast, it's going to be early November,
right,
because that's when the bucks are cruising and so on. So, you know, early season, lots of mosquitoes. It can be slow. You can't see anything with all the foliage on the trees. So I wouldn't be surprised if my first couple weekends back there, there's not even any filming going on.
Right. Gotcha. So, and they'll probably be a little more expedient and a little bit better at their craft now that they've got a year under their belt. That's cool. So what day does the 10 episode marathon kick off?
It's the 21st.
21st.
I think is that a Saturday? I think it is. 7 a.m. on History Channel. And so I looked at my local listings that had it as 4 a.m. here. I bought the whole series on iTunes because I just wanted to be able to have it in my laptop and you know, show somebody that hadn't seen it, you know, without having to find a TV.
Right.
But last I saw that it was still available on iTunes too.
Gotcha.
But we're looking forward to, you know, another season, and you know, it'll be fun to film it, fun to be on TV again, and you know, years from now, I'll be able to look back on it and say, yeah, we did this stuff. But ultimately, what we really care about is the hunting and you know, the fun and knowing each other and being with our friends. So, you know, someday the chasing tail will come and go, and we'll still have each other and look back, and it'll just be like looking in a photo album to look at the episodes on television.
Right. So that's cool. So you can still get them on iTunes, and the 21st is when they're going to be running the marathon, and then the new season launches sometime midwinter after the season. Is that correct?
That's something I don't know anything about.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah. Once again, the talent. That's what they call us, talent.
You're the talent.
Yeah, they call deer props. They call deer props. Like I think it's a little disrespectful. You know, like an animal give its life and you call it a prop. But,
interesting.
Yeah, it's
Right.
these technical guys. You know,
Right.
they go like, hey, you know, like, where's the prop? And I'm like, you know, you mean the nice doe that I killed this morning?
Right. Oh, wow. Yep. That's Hollywood for you, right?
Yeah, you know, but I'd like to try to get do a little more traditional bow hunting this year with on the show, because I enjoy that so much, and when they definitely need a definite for sure kill, you know, I tend to take the compound, but I think I'm going to stick to my guns this year and hunt with my recurve bows for the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool that you can you've got that many deer, and it's cool that you can go down to your primitive weapons and still have a good shot at harvesting a deer. That's awesome. That's very nice.
Yeah, it's just as fun when they don't come in range, you know, like your heart beats just as much.
Right.
And, you know, if they stay out there at 30 yards, you know they'd be dead with a compound, but you gotta wait, and sometimes they just don't give you the shot, but it's still a thrill.
A whole new element of difficulty. Very nice. Rob, this is it's been great. Is there anything else you want to cover before we end the interview?
No, I think we covered it pretty good. I appreciate this opportunity. You know, and one cool thing is that, you know, you and I are acquainted through Twitter, and I've got a few other, you know, hunting new friends through that organization. I got to say, I like the quality of the relationships and the conversations that happen on that. You know, there's other sites that they have things that they call people friends,
right.
But they're not really friends. They're just people that you clicked on your thing,
right?
You know, and there's this whole thing like this, like that. You know, you don't really like this,
right.
Or like that. But I think the Twitter, the quality of these relationships, like there's something I could tell you and say keep it under your hat, and I know you will.
Yep.
And you know, I think it's pretty cool, and I think it fits in with the hunting and hunter mentality, and we do have these relationships with other hunters. They're kind of intense because we're all passionate about what we do.
Right.
And I think, I hope even more and more hunters are on Twitter and networking like this and sharing the hunt.
I agree. I think Twitter's done and I don't know if this was their intent, but I have found a good hunting community on Twitter, and that the relationships that I'm developing because of Twitter are tremendous. And over the last year, I think some of my best hunting friends have come from Twitter. Guys I still may not have ever met yet, but will someday, and will hunt with them. But we're developing very strong relationships now. Very nice. Well, Rob, I appreciate your time, and if there's anything we can ever do for you, just let us know. If you want to get some.
If we get renewed, I'll definitely be back in touch and see about getting one of the other guys to do a podcast.
That would be cool. Yeah, we're happy to interview as many, and we're doing it. There's no monetary gain for us at the moment. Someday, hopefully, there will be, but we're just doing it because we like it, and we like talking to people. We like talking about hunting and keeping it interesting for everybody else that has joined our community because they enjoy that. So, Yep, awesome.
All right, so have a great day.
Okay, Rob, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right, thanks again to Rob for joining us and giving us his insight on everything that there is, or everything that has to do with suburban hunting, how it gets done on a television show, how it's affected his life. Very, very cool. And best of luck to Rob and the cast of the hit TV show Chasing Tail. Hope they have a great season coming up. And again, don't forget about the Marathon TV show. They're going to be running all 10 episodes on the History Channel tomorrow, starting at 10 or 7 a.m. Set your DVRs, let it go all the way through. Check out all the episodes and see what's going on there. So hopefully we'll have some of his co-owners on the show at some point. So again, thanks to Rob for being on the show. This is Jay Scott, your host. If you would like to reach us, please send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com. Check out our blog, which is at bigbuckregistry.com, and facebook.com/bigbuckregistry, twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. See the theme there? Everything we have is Big Buck Registry. So, and best of luck. Hope you're having a great season so far. Hopefully you have tagged out, well, probably not tagged out, but if you have tagged out, let us know. Send in some pictures to our blog and to Facebook. Post them on Facebook. Let us know what's going on out there. And if you would like to check us out on iTunes, if you'd like to get all 13 episodes so far of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck podcast on iTunes, you can find us there. All you have to do, if you're on an iPhone, just download the podcast app, and you'll get all kinds of things. Type in Big Buck Registry in the search bar, and it'll bring it up, and subscribe there. If you like this podcast, by all means, share this information with your friends. And while you're listening to the podcast on your iPad or iPhone, if you are listening to the podcast, you can actually, in the top right corner, there's an arrow, push it, and then text it to your friends that you think would like to listen to this show. It'll text them that exact episode and go through all of them. We had some with our co-host Dusty Phillips, who will be joining us next week from Ohio, and he's going to give us basically it's going to be a Ohio forecast, deer hunting forecast, and check that out. So if you're on iTunes, if you have an iPhone, check us out on iTunes. Forward those podcasts that you like to your friends. Get them interested in the Big Buck Registry so we can have more shares and get more pictures on our Facebook page and on our website for everybody to see what's going on in America with regards to deer hunting. So, again, this is your host, Jay Scott, signing off for the Big Buck Registry, and we'll see you next week.